Welcome to Category Visionaries, the show dedicated to exploring exciting visions for the future from the founders who are on the front lines building it. In each episode, we'll speak with a visionary founder who's building a new category or reimagining an existing one. We'll learn about the problem they solve, how their technology works, and unpack their vision for the future. I'm your host, Brett Stapper, CEO of Frontlines Media. Now let's dive right into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Category Visionaries. Today we're speaking with Ori Eisen, CEO and founder of Trusona, an account takeover prevention platform that's raised $38 million in funding. Ori, what's going on today?
Thank you for having me. I'm super jazzed to be here.
Not a problem, and I'm super excited as well. So I have to tell you, one of my favorite movies of all time is Catch Me If You Can. And in that movie, they have a person named Frank Abagnale, who I understand you know. Tell us about Frank Abagnale and how you ended up working with him.
I've contacted Frank's office over 20 years ago while I was still working at one of the largest credit card companies. The immediate default answer I got from the person who picked up the phone is Frank doesn't take new clients. He doesn't teach anyone his craft. So good luck. I explained to the person that I just got promoted and now I'm in charge not just on internet fraud for this company, but also for card counterfeit. And I don't know the first thing about counterfeiting cards. So everyone I asked, where do you learn this? Clearly not in university, right? They said, oh yeah, ask people who know what they're doing in this field. And the name Frank Abagnale came about like 25,000 times. So we ended the call. Poor person who picked up didn't know that I'm going to call now every week until he says yes. So next week I call, yeah, this is the same guy. I still didn't find somebody else to teach me, but I told you it doesn't take any new customers. I'm like, for any amount. Okay, so go back again after this 12 weeks. And there's an article in Business Insider that you can point your listeners to the full story, but I just couldn't learn what I needed to learn from anyone else. So I just kept trying. And the short version is one day I get a phone call that was already not fun because the person was just annoyed. And they said, listen, he has 20 minutes to give you in San Antonio on the way from speaking in the limo. Do you want that? Because that's the only time you can get from him. I'm like, yes. So I flew with my wife and the 1-year-old son at the time to San Antonio. It so happens that was a competing credit card company's show, just so you understand the insanity of all this. He gets off stage. I walk with him. He says, are you the guy? I'm like, yes. Like you already knew that this is the guy who's been pestering my office. This is the point where we never speak about what happens next. We're in the limo for 20 minutes. We say a few things to each other. He offers very gracefully for the driver to take me back to the hotel, which I totally didn't expect. And then he says the thing, I did not experience childhood here in the United States. I'm here since 1991. And when people say, well, let me help you, or let's do lunch, or that it's a thing people say, but they don't really mean. With Frank Abagnale, he meant it. He's been helping me. And now it's the second company. He helped me with my last company, 41st Parameter, in ways that are beyond description. He just wants to redeem himself so much that he is going overboard with what he's willing to do and what he is doing. So yes, does he have a past that he is not so proud of? Yeah, he will tell you that. But what he has done since is what I hope people will also remember, and not just his things that he did or didn't do, or they were made into a Hollywood movie with Catch Me If You Can.
Where does that persistence come from? Have you had that your entire life where you're just willing to call over and over and over again until you get to a yes?
My investors at Kleiner Perkins will tell you that they describe me two ways. One of them is he does not take no for an answer, because I did the same thing to them. We can talk about that if you want to give advice to founders. And the take no prisoner attitude, which basically means this. Look, Brett, say that you wanted to interview person X. I don't know if you have. By the way, you have somebody that you really want to interview and you couldn't, or you think you can't. Is there a name like that?
Yeah, probably Michael Ovitz. That's someone I look up to a lot. I want him on the show.
So hear me out. I don't know how many people are going to listen to this, but if you're listening to this right now, Brett and I are chatting, and you or your friend or your family, somebody knows Michael Ovitz, you have to connect, because you'll see how these things happen. But if you will focus and you will will that into your life, I assure you, Brett, it will happen. So I'll tell you the short Kleiner Perkins story. I wanted John Doerr to be on my board. Okay. This is what I want. Of course, everybody wants that. So here I am raising Series B, and I'm saying, hey, I would like to come pitch you. And they say, okay, good. Here are the 7 people who will be in the room. Said, is John Doerr one of them? Said, no, he's not available. Said, okay, then I'm not pitching you. They said, listen, this is your only chance to pitch us. You know how difficult it is. Do you want to take the meeting or no? I said, no, if he's not there, I'm not pitching. A week goes by, and of course, my team's like, are you crazy? Enough with the insanity. This is friggin' clear. Perfect. Let's go to the meeting. I was like, no, we're not going to the meeting if he's not in the room. It's that simple. So my assistant at the time calls in and said, listen, I know my boss is a little crazy and he really wants to take the meeting. So how about he will show up, you'll have the 7 people, and how about John Doerr will call in, or you will do a Zoom, like one of those in between. Mm-hmm. And they say, no, you don't understand. John Doerr will be in China that week. So my assistant comes to me and said, hey, listen, they really are telling me the truth. John is not going to be there. I'm like, then good. Tell me what hotel he's in China. I will be with him in China, and the 7 people can listen to our conversation. And she's like, looking to, are you nuts? No, I want him to hear the pitch. Mm-hmm. Anybody else who will hear the pitch and kind of second smoke it to him is never going to come across as me talking to you with my passion to this business. Guess what happens next?
I'm guessing he's on the board.
And a day later, she says, you know what? John Doerr will be in the meeting. You can now set the call.
Okay, so you didn't have to go to China.
I did not have to go to China. But if you just give up because you hear the first no, or the second no, or the third no, just know with a K. Get it? Like K. N-O-W, that these people have gatekeepers and they know that everybody wants to meet them, but they also have a sense of like who really wants and needs to meet me, as opposed to who just wants to say he's been in the room with me. And there is a big kind of chasm there. You can set your life to say, you know what, I'm just going to keep trying. And if I don't get it, that's fine. But if you settle for the first no, I'm just telling you what you probably already feel and know, that you're probably going to miss out on some stuff.
Who are you trying to meet right now, or who are you trying to get in touch with, or what are you trying to do now where you're in the middle of this journey where you are being told no and you're still trying to push through and make it happen?
I was hoping you asked. I brought this list. How much time do we have? I have a very long list here to read to you. Now, at this point, I've met many people that I'm just super lucky and I'm humbled by meeting them. I think I'm only left with a few Hollywood people that I would just, and most of them are comedians, in case you wonder. People like Larry David. I would do anything to just have lunch with them, or Sacha Baron Cohen, for example, or Richard Lewis before that, right? Or Mel Brooks. I would love to meet him, right? You know, because you see the movies and you see the person, like, oh my God, I can't believe this is real. Like, he's that funny. That's where I'm at this point. But I've met so many people, vice presidents, CEOs, founders, that it's just, wow, it's an experience that will be with me for a lifetime.
I love it. Let's talk about the Kleiner Perkins pitch. What was the pitch to them?
Yeah, I'm going to go one pitch before, because otherwise it will not make sense. And then we'll go to Kleiner Perkins. I want to talk to you about my Series A of my last business pitch. Mm-hmm. I was still here in Arizona, and I'm pitching Silicon Valley companies who are well entrenched in their ways. Let me translate that if you've never been a founder of VC-backed company. Some VCs gave me term sheets, and these are top 10 VCs, that basically says, if we give you the money, here are the conditions. One of them is you will not be the CEO anymore of the startup. It's in the term sheet. And we're moving the headquarters of the company to Silicon Valley. You can stay in the boonies, wherever you are, but this is how we like to do things. We want things very close to home, in parentheses, so we don't have to fly the corporate jet to board meetings. Get it? Mm-hmm. I only learned that later. So, of course, I said thank you, but no thank you to some of these term sheets. Mm-hmm. And if you read my history, you see that MVP, or Northwestern Venture Partners, did give me Series A of my last company, but the pitch there was this. If you don't know, many of these firms take vacations together. They take trips. It's a business expense, I assume. Mm-hmm. And I basically told them, okay, I can come pitch you on a Monday. Now, I was such a noob that I didn't even realize that Mondays is a dead day for VCs. Mm-hmm. This is the day they meet with each other, right? I don't even think about it. And I say, I can meet you because otherwise I need to take this other term sheet I have. And they say, first of all, there are no meetings on Monday. No. Second, we are on our annual trip to Vail, like on a ski resort. So you want the head of our firm to live offsite, come on the jet to do a pitch? Are you nuts? I said, if he's not in the room, I'm not pitching. It's almost like people hear the words and say, something's wrong with you. And I said, no, this is what I want. I want him to hear the pitch. Then we'll see if it's meant for each other. So the guy, the partner, bless his heart, coaches me on the deck, helps me make the slides, and says, you do not veer left or right from these words on these slides, or you'll be dead. And especially when our boss is already upset with you before the meeting that you're bringing him from his vacation. You understand? Like, you have zero chance of getting our money. I said, fine. So imagine I'm taking the plane from Phoenix to Silicon Valley. I know about everything that's happening. And these guys are just sitting there like, that, waiting to say no to the pitch. Get it?
Mm-hmm.
And I decide not to use the deck. I get up all the way to San Jose Airport. I'm thinking, man, if I'm using the deck, they've seen a million decks like this. It's like, it's going to be blah, blah. I cannot leave the room with the deck. I need to do something that will be memorable. So I get up to the whiteboard and I look dead in the eye at the head of the firm and I say, if this was 1492, I'm Columbus and you're Queen Isabella. I'm pitching you to go do a thing that most likely would kill me because maybe I can't circumnavigate the world. But the reason you should invest in me is not anything found in the deck. And the other guy turned white, says, oh my God, he's not going to even use the deck. It's because you will get to say that you funded this mission of doing fingerprinting. So I leave the room and I get probably 45 minutes call from the partner who said something. I can't believe that you went against my advice to veer from the deck. But congratulations to you, Mr. Columbus. You're getting the money. And from there on, this was how I got one of my nicknames.
That is incredible. Have you ever had something not work out? Have you ever gone against the standard advice and have it not work?
Many times the chemistry is just wrong. So when you and I chatted a little bit before, I asked you, hey, what's the spirit of this podcast? And are people too stuck up? And you said like, no, we just want to have a good conversation. So when things don't work out, I have this, it's a slide whistle and I just go, and that's it. Everybody's laughing and understands, c'est la vie, not everything's going to work out. I get to where I am today, not because I'm successful all the time. If anything, 90% of the time, I'm not successful because I keep trying what will work. If you're a founder, let me tell you, whatever your first plan is, I don't care what it's going to change. How amazing you think it is. It's just everything is a series of pivots left and right. The economy can go south. COVID can hit you. The first use case is not as big as you thought. Everything could change. So just keep trying, break things until you find the path. Of course, 10 years later, there's revisionist history and everybody thinks that this was a straight line. Everybody thinks that, but you and your heart and your team will know this was not handed to us on a silver platter.
This show is brought to you by Frontlines Media, a podcast production studio that helps B2B founders launch, manage, and grow their own podcast. Now, if you're a founder, you may be thinking, I don't have time to host a podcast. I've got a company to build. Well, that's exactly what we built our service to do. You show up and host, and we handle literally everything else. To set up a call to discuss launching your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. Now, back to today's episode. I want to talk about the technology that you've invented, or I should say some of the technology that you've invented, because I know you've invented a lot. So let's talk about computer fingerprinting. Tell us about the genesis of that idea and the creation of that technology.
So the year was 2001. I was the head of risk at VeriSign, and Network Solutions was the only place you could buy a domain name. And if you remember, many people were victims of phishing because the bad guys would use other people's credit cards to buy domain after domain and just bombard us all with phishing. I mean, literally the early days of that. So imagine you work at the only company that can give you a domain name. It was a monopoly in a sense, right? So the US government had certain regulations that we couldn't say no to checks, for example. Like you couldn't say, if I get a check, I'm not accepting it because there's no other way. So there was a lot of fraud. I won't say anything. It's all public information. Go read Gartner reports from the time or the K1 or the public, the investor calls of VeriSign. But let's just say the amount of fraud that was there was unusually high. Okay. And once you start looking at the data, you see that you have, let's just say 50 orders. All of them come from different IP address. All of them come from different credit card numbers. All of them come from, everything looks like it's regular, honest, random traffic. And we would call that the first 40 parameters. So name, address, phone, all the things you usually get on an e-commerce order, shipping address, billing address, right? All those things. But the fraud clearly is not seen in them because it all looks legit. So the concept of the 41st parameter was born to, can we add more things, not from you, the person who's filling the order, but from your device to help us know, is this person really in New York? And the invention started with one parameter. It was patented under my name. We can talk about it all we want. And it works like this. Imagine I get 50 orders and I ask every single device the same question, which is, what time is it there where you are down to the millisecond? If you're 50 random people, let's just say some in New York, some in California, some in Russia, some in China, clearly the clock is going to be varied and wide by hours, right? Because the time in New York is not the time in California. But what if all these 50 strangers have the same exact, down to the millisecond delta of time for me. That would tell you that the clock that is belonging to the device that makes all these orders is the same clock. And by interrogating the browser, asking what time is there, which was a very typical question to ask in JavaScript to kind of make the screen the right language and all the things you would ask for UX reasons, if you want to think about it that way. I'm now using it for fingerprinting and fraud detection. And it was like catching or shooting fish in a barrel. So that was invented. And later on, Experian bought the company in order to get this technology to all the countries in the world.
Amazing. Where did you have that idea? Where does that come from? Is that just, you're taking a shower and all of a sudden it hits you and you just run to the computer? Or where did that idea come from?
Hey, if you're listening to this, I swear on my children's life that Brett did not ask this question before this moment. And he did not pay me to do what I'm about to do now. And he doesn't even know what I'm about to show him. But if you look above my finger, this is a Slack channel called what?
Oh, it's blurry for me.
Shower Ideas.
Shower Ideas.
It's literally the name, Shower-Ideas. It's literally the name. I'm not joking. So we have this joke at Trusona now with one of our engineers that the best ideas come to you in the shower again. So we have a room that discusses it. This specific idea for the fingerprinting actually did not come to me in the shower. I remember very vividly the moment it came to me, but I'm constantly thinking about how can we do something better? It's the whole notion of Kaizen in Japanese, kind of rhymes with my last name, Eisen. So I could wake up tomorrow and say, wait, why aren't we doing this? And it's just how my life has been. I'm super happy to tell you I have over 38 patents to my name today, and some are still pending. But it's the notion of not resting. It's not good enough that keeps me going, because the bad guys change their behavior all the time, which is part of why I love my job.
Are we ever going to be able to eliminate this type of fraud online, or is it always just going to be a battle?
This is going to be a battle. And unfortunately, in the last 18 months, we are slipping and losing it in faster ways just because of generative AI. And I can go deeper into why and why I started Trusona, my latest company, and what we're doing there. But if you take out generative AI to create deepfakes, we are still not in a good place with that. Let me tell you, the tables are just turning on us and the defenders.
When you were first getting started in this industry, what were your thoughts? Did you view this as a problem that could be solved and could be eliminated? Did you think 20 years from now, I'm going to be out of a job because this won't even exist?
Yep, I absolutely thought that. Going back to the pitch of Kleiner Perkins. So again, I'm now in the room. John Doerr enters. He walks around. The first thing he does is takes off the tie of my sales guy and of my CFO. I've never worn a tie to business meetings. Again, they say, what do you mean you're not wearing it? I'm like, I'm not wearing ties. So I didn't know that that's how he operates. But the first thing he did is undo, says, don't come with ties to my meetings. And I'm like, sitting there. So as we're sitting there in the room, he said, you could do a lot of things, right? But his partner, Ted, said something to me that I still remember. He says, we still need people like you in this fight. Later on, after we solve this security problem, you can go invent, like the next B2C, whatever site, right? But unfortunately, what we have not predicted, again, as an industry, is how fast and how volatile AI will make our job. Because it now gives tools to the average person to change your image, change your video, change your voice, create images that look like driver licenses. And it puts the onus on the defenders to ask the question, is this real? So I thought the problem could be done. And I thought at first the problem is like the network layer. So I wrote this beautiful white paper that says, let's start a new internet from scratch and everything there will be secure, right? It sounded like, utopia. But when you see how crafty the other side is, I can give you some examples. You realize that it's really a game of clever people who are being incentivized. And we on the defending side, what are we getting? We're getting our salaries and maybe our bonus if the company does well. But I'm not going to make $10 million tomorrow morning because I found a new crack in the code of somebody else. But the other side operates this way. So it's an unfair fight in that sense.
Do we need to change that, or does that need to be changed? Does there need to be an incentive for the defenders, like almost like sales reps are treated, where they're compensated largely based on performance? Or is that impossible to do?
Next question. No, I'm going to give you an answer. I do believe that the game is not set up correctly because people on the corporate side get paid or get incentivized the same, where they had a year of nothing or the year of millions of attacks that they defended. It's just how companies work. And at the same time, we're paying bounties to people who find cracks in our code. Oh, they do get bounties. And you have to ask, well, why wouldn't I also pay if no bounty was paid? Because that means the code you wrote is good. I'm swaying to give you another thread of ideas just so you see how I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a joke that asks, what's the difference between American game shows on TV and Japanese? In American game shows, we reward people who are smart. Think about Jeopardy. In Japanese game shows, we punish people who are stupid. And I'm going to leave it there. I think we need to think differently about the problem because the incentives are so skewed at this point that I'm not surprised when I read the news every morning about the breach of this and the hack of that.
Let's talk a little bit about the current company today. So, at a high level, what does the company do? Maybe we just do an elevator pitch here just so we can understand a bit more.
So, in short, people can go read about Trusona. It's spelled Trusona. It's true and persona put together. And the mission we're on and the problem that we solve is, how do I know it's really Brett on the other end right now? How do I know you're real and you're not some AI model that is trained on your voice? Now, I could do some demos for you here with my phone of how I can imitate people like David Attenborough, and you would never know that it's not him speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have also one for Snoop Dogg. But the point is, you can't tell if you're not with me in the room, and I can do some inspection of different documents.
Mm-hmm.
So our job is to help folks like IT help us to really know it's their employee and not somebody from Scattered Spider. If you're unfamiliar with that term, read about it. It's a gang that is now wreaking havoc in the world by doing things with the AI deepfakes. And the other use cases, think about all the cases you call a bank and you want to move a lot of money, or you bought a house and you talk to your title company. There's so many use cases. Today, I spoke with a company with their HR department who said, we have a problem where one person interviews, I won't say in which country in the world, and a different person comes to work. And they're none the wiser because they're not working in the same office.
Yeah.
So our job is to help uncover the true persona with all the different technologies we have developed and the access to the DMVs or the Department of Motor Vehicle, which has been super hard to do. It took 8 years to get to where we are. But now we can literally ping a DMV live to know, is the document you just scanned with them, or it's just beautifully looking, but it's made by generative AI with 6 fingers, if you get the joke.
Glad to know that DMV moves slow with everything. It's not just when I'm standing in line to get a license, it's also with a procurement, it sounds like.
That's all I'm going to say.
Now, when it comes to marketing, how would you describe the marketing approach? And the reason I ask is I was poking around on your LinkedIn. I spent some time on there and it was funny. I saw there was an account takeover and it was making me laugh. And what I see a lot of times in B2B technology, especially enterprise B2B tech, it's so boring. Everything's so boring. Talk to us about your marketing philosophy.
Okay. I'm going to go back to MVP, my last company. I'm Mr. Columbus. And they thought they were done with me just not using the deck and going to the whiteboard. No, that was just a volley to open the relationship. So here we are in our second board meeting, and I'm about to get fired for my marketing acumen. Why? Because my approach is, if I'm going to make another ad with fingerprint, iris, padlock, zeros and ones, hoodie, all those things you've seen a million times, and by the way, they don't work anyway, I just made myself part of the plaster wall of cybersecurity. So if you were walking in the RSA show and you saw yet another booth with an iris, would you remember me? No, you won't. So all my life, I wanted to be a copywriter. You can talk about that if you want. And my belief is, if everybody's using the color blue, the last color you should use is blue. You wonder, why are we using purple? Because no one was using purple. Okay. So here I am making this ad in CIO magazine. If you want, I can send you an image of it so you can put it as part of it, of a dog on the beach digging. Yes, the biggest thing of his anatomy is his butt in your face. And the ad was asking, what can we dig out for you? And here's a board member who is very nervous. He said, like, what? You're going to show our customers a dog's butt? That's disrespectful. How dare you? And I survived that board meeting because another person on the board who used to be my boss kind of knew how I operate, says, well, I don't see an orifice in this ad because it was photoshopped. So I think it's less offensive than you think. And to my defense, I said, look, the wedding channel is using exactly the same picture in their ad. So that's up to the right. That's motherhood and apple pie. Which brings us to the LinkedIn thing you talked about. I'm going to drop one name. His name is Chris Roberts. He's one of the most famous hackers in the world. He's the guy who tried to bring down a Southwest flight by playing with their Wi-Fi. Chris, I know you did it just to show the world that it can happen. I'm not saying anything other than, and I've listened to people like Chris for years who basically have rants. You can go look them up of how bad marketing could be, how bad a sales call could be, how bad an SDR call can be. And you know what? They're right. Pause for effect. Why? Because people who call a CISO with sales breath on, not only will not get the sale and not get their attention, they're actually sealing their fate that if your company allows you to speak to me this way and make these lavish remarks, I can give you some examples, I don't want to do business with you. And most marketing people, if they haven't sold security products, are just so used to selling to CFOs and to HR and to marketing officials. It's a different world. So if you want to stand out in the world of security, you cannot and you should not do what the herd is doing. And don't say in a meeting, yeah, I don't know, Symantec is doing it, so we should too. No, you just kill yourself because you will not be able to differentiate. So about 6 weeks ago, I asked our own CISO, oddest question, which, hey, what if we gave you the keys to our social media, like the credentials? I would be prohibited from stopping you. And you would speak as a CISO speak to other CISOs. And we'll just cut me and marketing and sales out of the communication, and you'll talk to them like they want to be talked to. And I won't say anything other than go read July 8th, I think was a Monday. You can check that. Go read the Trusona LinkedIn post from Monday. And I have never seen 13,000 reaction in 24 hours to any of my LinkedIn posts in all of my career. It just tells you that being different and doing things that kind of rattle the cage and change the status quo is the way to go, even if it's risky and even if it's scary. You want to be safe, don't be in a startup.
This show is brought to you by the Global Talent Co., a marketing leader's best friend in these times of budget cuts and efficient growth. We help marketing leaders find, hire, vet, and manage amazing marketing talent for 50 to 70% less than their U.S. and European counterparts. To book a free consultation, visit globaltalent.co.
I go to RSA every year. I go to Black Hat every year. And per your point, I walk around and everyone has black and red. They have scary animals. It, makes your heart race a little bit. And they have the exact same message. And all I think is, how do you possibly stand out in this world where literally everyone's saying the same thing, even though they have different categories of products, it's all the same stuff. It sounds like you found a way to stand out, and that's with being different, being funny, being entertaining. How do you get that pushed across the line? So you gave the example there of a board member pushing back. I've been, as a marketer, on the receiving end of that a lot, where I have a creative idea and I get told, no, it's, too risky, it's too bold. And I think a lot of founders have that happen. A lot of marketers have that happen. How do you convince people to say yes to crazy ideas, I guess is the question I'm aiming to ask there.
If you're a listener and you get fired over this advice, don't call me. But my advice first would be, think about asking for forgiveness more than asking for permission. That's the high level bit. Okay, I know not everybody wants to risk their career. I get it. So the one advice below that will be, you love your idea so much, you think it's going to work? Good. Do it on $100 shoestring budget. If it explodes, no one will ever know. But if it gets the right signals, you can say, listen, I know you're pushing back. However, while you were arguing with me, we did this experiment here. Here are the results. Why? Because if you enter the room with data, you enter the room with data. You enter the room with your opinion. It's just very different. So sometimes the way to resolve things is just, let's try on a small scale just to see if we're right or not. And you know what? Sometimes you realize your idea is done. And thank God we only did it here under a different company name just to test it. But the higher level bit, I'll repeat, you have to break glass and fix it fast sometimes, because otherwise you will risk being in adherence to something that is only in your mind. Who's to say that you need to use glue? Who's to say that you need there's no authority, but you are getting into this group think. I'll let you know that I have never and will never have a booth at RSA, period, as a statement. You want to meet me? I'm in this hotel. We'll have a party. Cocktail. All that is fun. I'm not going to put another booth among 9,000 other booths and hope that that's how you will recognize that I'm doing something, because A, you might never even get to the booth. You'll get to the booth tired. You've seen so much garbage up until now. It's such a loser's game. I'm sorry, RSA show. I'm sure you're making millions off the show. But as a marketer, I would not choose that as the way to rise above the noise. And I'm doing it with my dollars. I don't have a booth there.
Let's talk about building a marketing team. How do you build a marketing team of people who think that way? I'm sure they're excited when they have that first meeting with you and you tell them, hey, this is the place that you can be crazy. But how do you find those people in the first place? What I've found is building marketing teams at startups is extremely difficult. Any lessons that you've learned along the way?
Yeah. Let's start with what not to do. Do not, under any circumstance, hire somebody from a large corporation and hope that they will become a startup person. Second advice, no matter what they tell you in the interview. Oh, I think I can work with a small team. Oh, I think I can work with no budget. Oh, I think I can be creative. You are asking a dog to be a cat. It's just, with all due respect, yes, they have four legs. Yes, they have fur. Like, they have a lot in common, but their instincts are just very, very different. And I'm sorry, I've tried it so many times. It is hard, not impossible. So if you want to take risk and find the one in a million, go ahead. But for the most part, just don't try it because it's just not going to fit. So now to your question, well, what should I do? I would do two things. I would hire under the title I'm looking for. Let me be very specific with my advice.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking for an SVP? Hire a VP. You're looking for a VP? Hire a senior director. You're looking for a senior director? Hire a director. You're looking for a CMO? Hire a VP. Why? There's a notion of headroom that you want people not to be here for 1 year, get bored and go someplace else. You don't want them to be with you 1 year and then Google calls and you lose them. You want people to strive to get somewhere with a vision and to have headroom to grow into something bigger than them. So how would you do that? If I was looking for a VP and I'm interviewing a VP, that's already not going to give me what I'm looking for because this is a lateral move. In fact, if they're coming from slightly bigger company, it's a downgrade.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have somebody that will feel that you're giving them that chance, and then you can empower them. And you as the CEO or founder have to be there and say, that's not bold enough. That's not strong enough. That's not what I told you in the interview, to make them feel, oh my God, they really mean it here. Because I'm sure they've had other interviews where they said, we want wonderful things. But the minute you bring the wonderful thing, no, that's too much. So my advice is hire from somebody who will come from underneath, because they will want to prove themselves in a way that a lateral move or downgrade never will be, and reinforces the authority of the company. I want more from you. Go wilder, crazier. And of course, you can always tamp it down if it is. I've heard some ideas that I said, maybe not. I've heard those ideas. But for the most part, you want people to come up with 7 different ideas where 5 of them are amazing and 3 of them are incredible. And 1 of them is a smash hit.
How important is industry or domain expertise? Obviously, in your industry, do you need someone coming from this world, or are you okay with hiring just an amazing marketer who has the right mindset and approach?
Again, I've tried every combination you can imagine. And with all due respect, when you get to P&G level, okay, of consumer goods, there is a thing, by the way, I studied marketing, I have a degree in marketing, but I'm not practicing. There is a notion that even in management skills, the higher you go in organizations, you need to know less of the details and more of the strategy. Mm-hmm. That is true. But in software security, B2B, the buyer wants to know and feel that you understand their blip here in the post.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word I was about to use, because otherwise you seem too glossy to them. And again, back to what I said before, they're like, why would I want to do business with you if you're talking to me in generalities? Mm-hmm. And those people will use get the images picture of the worried executive. And that. So you do want somebody who is like half product marketing that is a little bit technical, but doesn't have to be an engineer. Mm-hmm. But can't just be a generalist, because the audience they're talking to is bombarded with messages that are just washed up. And if you are just going to be even close to that, you've lost them right there. You don't even spend your money. So I do think they need to have some domain expertise. So yes, somebody from security, but then in security, you have authentication and you have PAM modules and you have all kinds of things. They at least need to be in that sphere as selling to the target buyer, like the CISO in that. But they cannot come from software that is like B2B payment to banks and say, yes, I'll be doing well with selling to CISOs, because you don't even know what you don't know.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, we've only spent, 45 minutes together, but I can gather that you probably have some things that you disagree with, some advice that's maybe shared around Silicon Valley that you think, no, that's BS. I don't think that's how things should be. Do you have anything like that? Anything come to mind?
I give some of that advice on my blog. I will share it with you so you can put it in this blog listing under my firstname.lastname.com, orieisen.com/startup. Let me give you just a couple. One of them, and it's probably my most controversial topic I talk to, is how people in the United States and maybe in some Western world, not so much in Europe, I'm going to make that distinction, they don't know how to take a real vacation. And the high level part of it goes like this. I begin my blog post by saying, let me guess, the last time you went on vacation, you checked your email from the beach. And most people say, how do you know? And let me guess that last time you took vacation, you took a 4-day, and that seemed like a long time. Yeah, how do you know? Because my point is, just like objects have inertia, you have inertia. So if I take you from a very busy schedule of working in a startup and I replant you physically on the beach somewhere, your mind is still there. It's not like you just switched. So it takes you a couple of days, assuming that you're not checking your email, to just wind down to be in vacation mode. And then there's the travel day there, which is never fun. So that's not vacation. And the day to travel back, that's not vacation. So as you can see, if you took 7 days out of the office, you might have 2 days of net vacation. If you even let go of your device, which most of us don't. I'm talking about the process and procedure of how to do the right thing. And let me just say it, how to take 2 weeks. Let me say it again, 2 weeks, 14 days. But you don't just leave the team, because we all know that you will never do that and you can't do that. But it's how to deputize different people in the organization to be the CEO for those 2 weeks. How only you and that person can communicate if anything goes kaploink. It's a technical term, look it up. And how you let yourself relax and recharge so you can be better when you get back. But if you just go on vacation and you keep checking email and you're still in distress, you're just not physically in the office, it's like a basketball player that was told to sit down for a few minutes, but he sneaked into the gym and he's on the bike. What are you doing? That's some of the things I simply don't agree. We have a culture of people who kill themselves and work 100-hour weeks nonstop, forget what it does to their friendships and relationships and their kids. And we think this is good. No, it's bad. It's terrible. And I speak from experience because I ended up in a hospital after just not listening to my body. After working 8 hours straight without thinking that vacation is the thing I need. Yeah, your body will quit on you one day and say, you know what, you can keep doing that. I'm not doing it. And now you're in a situation where you don't control what's happening and you don't control the time. So if you don't have time to be off, let me tell you, your body will set the time without consulting with you.
I'll have to read that blog post. We have a first vacation with our newborn coming up in 2 weeks, and it'll be a 2-week-long trip in Europe. So I'll read it. I'll try to digest it, because you described how I am with vacations. Every founder I know, it's not really a vacation. We're just, like you said, checking email, checking our phones from a different place. That's the only thing that really changes.
It's called taking proper vacation. Again, this is one of my most controversial aspects there. You can read it. And maybe next time we chat, we can talk about other things. But Silicon Valley is right about a lot of things, but we're still kind of pulling things from the 50s and 60s and 70s that may not be correct anymore for us to be using today, especially with the advent of not having to be in the same office and all kinds of changes in society that need to reshape themselves in how founders work with their teams.
I love it. All right, Ori, we're up on time. We're going to have to wrap here. I should say we're over on time. I don't want to keep your dog waiting any longer here to eat. We're going to have to wrap. I would love to have you back again. This has been such a fun conversation. I have a feeling that we could go on and on here for a couple of hours. So we'll save that for part 2, part 3, part 4. Really appreciate you taking the time. I know you just mentioned your website there. Where else should we send people if they want to follow along with you?
If they want to see what I do today, you can go to our company, which is trusona.com, trusona.com. If you want to read my advice to founders, which will soon become a book, it's orieisen.com/startup. And on that page, there are some of my demos. That's one of the things that people really tell me they try to imitate and learn from. But if you just Google my name, you will get a lot of content just like this, hopefully, that is aiming to help founders find their way and not just listening to their board members.
Amazing. I love it. Thanks again for making this so much fun. Really enjoyed it.
With pleasure.
This episode of Category Visionaries is brought to you by Frontlines Media, Silicon Valley's leading podcast production studio. If you're a B2B founder looking for help launching and growing your own podcast, visit frontlines.io/podcast. And for the latest episode, search for Category Visionaries on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.